for reapplicants is where the thing becomes even harder, because now you have a mental thing that you're going to lose again and again.
Dr. Ishan is with me, and he's going to discuss with me how he's able to get 10 invites and 3 acceptances over the past 2 years. And throughout his journey, he's originally from India, lived in Canada, then did a fellowship at University of Pittsburgh in periodontology, and he had quite an extensive experience in dentistry up here, doing different things, improving a lot of things in his profile. And I got the opportunity to work with him, and today I'm gonna pick his brain, ask him some questions that might help other people to improve their profile and get accepted to their dream schools. So thank you, Dr. Ishan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And it was my honor to have you on my side during my application process. And I'll be lucky and to help at any other fellow students. And I believe they would be lucky also to have you by their side.
Thank you, Ishan. So how do you pronounce your last name? I was trying to do this before the recording and I couldn't get it right. So how do you pronounce your last name, Dr. Ishan?
Ahuja.
It's Ahuja. Ahuja. I will get it right afterward, but
someday.
So here's a question, Doc. So originally you're from Punjab, India. After your graduation, you came to Canada, right? So and then you lived in Canada and then you moved to US. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
So can you briefly tell us how much time have you been living in US? And you got accepted to UCSF, Pittsburgh, and Temple until now. And you gave 10 total interviews this year, right?
Fortunately, yes.
Okay, let's reverse engineer. So let's talk about your US experience. When did you came here and what have you been doing?
So if let's going by the Indian experience. So I graduated back in 2018 from SGRD in Punjab. It's a dental school in Amritsar, very prestigious. And I moved. I worked there for 6 months in the civil hospital. It's like a medical hospital, and I worked under an oral surgeon. I did 2 research projects during my dental school. Went to a few public health camps, and then moved to Canada by the end of 2018. I moved to Canada for a public health program, and thereby I stayed over for like 3-4 years in Canada. During that time in my public health program, I also got the opportunity to do my dental assistant licensing. I worked under an endodontist for 3 years as a dental assistant, and then moved to United States last year in actually at this point in 2023, because we're in 2025. So I moved in June of 2023 to United States to do the fellowship in periodontology for at University of Pittsburgh. And
so you lived in Canada for about 3 years?
No, I lived in Canada for about 5 years.
And did you do this healthcare master? Was it a master's or a diploma?
It's technically a BHS. It's technically a public health degree, but it's a bachelor's degree.
Okay, bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
And so here's my question. Now, since you have done a lot of different things, I get a lot of calls from people who are right now in Canada. So what's your advice? Somebody who's working there as a dental assistant or looking for jobs, and it's getting very saturated up there now, finding jobs and everything. So what would be your advice to people who just landed or are already in Canada and want to pursue dentistry in US? What would be the things they should do that would make their profile better?
Very nice question. So here's 2 pathways. If you are in Canada, either you're going to start practicing or working towards your dream in Canada, or working towards your dream in United States. Canada still has couple of different pathways. Is either you're going through the direct licensure pathway or you go through the university pathway. You got to figure it out which one is you want. Nothing is easier, I would say. Both are evenly poised or evenly difficult, I would say. I figured myself out that I want to be in a university, whether it is in Canada or in United States. I did not want it to go through the licensure pathway. I had my reasons for those. So once you figure that thing out, you start to see at this point in Canada and in US also, they're trying to have almost the similar exams. You do INBD for US, and some of the universities in US also requires ADAT. If not until the last cycle, they might be starting. Michigan does. Actually, University of Pittsburgh has a listing of ADAT on their website. Optional, it may become a very competitive, because what I saw this year is a lot of applicants had ADAT scores. I personally had it also, so it does make.
So what's a good score in ADAT? I never gave ADAT. Like, how is it? Like TOEFL have 120 score, right? How does ADAT get scored, and what's a good score?
You're looking for US schools, anything above 500 you should consider good. Out of 800, it's an exam. Of 800, and if you go beyond 600, that is where you find you would be competitive. Like that's where you would be in the top fives of the applicant pool.
So people who don't know about ADAT is actually an exam which a DDS student give in order to get into postgrad residency. A lot of schools for perio, endo, for ortho require you to give ADAT. Well, ortho requires you to give GRE, but a lot of these postgrad program would require ADAT. So just to ask you, what are the subjects in ADAT?
It's an exam divided into 3 sections. One of the section is your clinical sciences, in which all the clinical subjects that we all study in our final year gets asked. The second section is your basic sciences, which is your dental anatomy, microbiology, physiology, biochemistry. That is, it gets judged on that. And the third is for your research methodology. Is
that tough?
It's research methodology, and it's one more subject called as biostatics. It's more of like a mathematical thing. Got to cram it. You got to like study little.
No mean values, derivations, derivative, standard deviation stuff. So
mean, median. So yeah.
Here's a question: do you compared to INBD, how much more difficult is it? Or the preparation part?
INBD, I think because it has been given a lot longer, it has been there for a lot longer time. There are way more study material for it. There's dental decks, there's boot camp, there's a million things for it. ADAT, you don't have a lot of things to study for it. So you have to find your ways to study for it. How I did was, I used the same material that I used for INBD for the clinical part. For the basic sciences, I have to go back to the first aids and all the material that people used to use for the NBD part 1 when it used to happen. And for the research, for the biostats, that's another area of like.
I think first aid, USMLE first aid for material is used for that biostatistic portion.
USMLE part 3, that's what I used. And there are a lot of materials that's coming out of it. A lot of people are looking out for it, because biostats, if you look into it, it's a subject that comes from medicine.
I've studied it a little bit during my MHA.
Yes. So some part of my fellowship also had this subject of biostats. I think dental schools in their first or second years have such kind of subjects, if I'm not wrong. Probably double check for it. But that is a hard part. The clinical sciences is probably a little easier. The basic sciences and the biostats is little harder to.
So to make it convenient for people who are listening. So imagine if I'm somebody in Canada right now, I'm looking for dental assisting. I've known people who started doing pharmacy, became pharmacy assistant. Do you recommend giving ADAT?
For sure.
But
yeah.
here's one thing I've seen. I've never gave ADAT when I was applying, and a lot of people will reach out to me and say their TOEFL is like 91 or 86, and they want to improve their profile, so they want to give ADAT. And
Correct.
what happens is they go and give ADAT, and then they get like 300, 400 score.
Correct.
And then I'm like, how is this useful now? So I usually tell people, like, fix your foundation first, and then if you want to go for ADAT, go for it. But if your TOEFL, if you're not unable to conquer TOEFL, you're unable to do the basic stuff correctly, if you have like other things are not correctly done, then it doesn't really make a good effect. So here's a question I was going to ask you. So did you give ADAT in Canada, or when you came here later on you gave it?
Mm, I touched part on two of those options. Is if you are giving an exam just to give an exam, it will not help you.
Mhm.
If you are going to do something, let's say I give an example of my fellowship. If I'm just going to do the fellowship just because I spend like this much amount of dollars and it gets a certificate, it doesn't actually help. We had 8 people in the fellowship that were doing the same thing, and only I applied and got the interviews. Everyone else also applied. They did. None of those got the DDS interviews. uh, you have to like put
No, but
yeah.
my question is,
Yeah.
I do understand that by the time you were applying in your fellowship, you had done a lot of different things.
Correct.
But ADAT, did you give it back when you were in Canada?
Yes, yes, yes.
So you had ADAT done even in your first cycle, and this is your second cycle when you got 10 invites. In the
Correct.
first cycle, you got about 2 or 3 invites, right?
3 invites, yeah.
Okay. So the question is, where do you feel like how people, 90% of the time, people who reach out to me ask, how can I improve my profile? And we discussed about how you improve your TOEFL score. So can you advise people what things can they do in order to increase their profile? Because you never did a lot of GP work in India. You flew and you came to Canada. You had an undergrad, which was a good thing because
Correct.
schools love it because you did schooling in North America. But what other things can they do? And can you emphasize on the importance of TOEFL and how they can improve their profile?
So yeah, so first, like start with your TOEFL. Take it to 3 digits. Any 3 digits should be fine. The higher, the better. But start with the TOEFL. Then start moving on from there. Start doing your dental assisting wherever you are. You are in Canada, do dental assisting. You are in US, do dental assisting. If you cannot, at least do shadowing. Try to also do volunteer work. This is what I have seen. In once maybe you get an invite, the colleges really want to know what other aspect you have other than doing just dentistry. This is what I felt, that
True.
what you bring else to the table, because if everyone has a good TOEFL score, obviously they get an invite, and everyone has a dental assisting, what else you would have? That is where exams like ADAT comes into picture. Doing research is also very helpful. It takes a little longer to do it, and publishing in any journal would not make difference. Doing a good research, collaborating with good people, publishing in good journals, that makes sometimes way more difference.
So let's bring it to a basic level for people who are just starting off. I'm somebody in Canada. I'm trying to find dental assisting job. Right now, a lot of people tell me that in Canada, they require you to have a license, dental, be a registered dental assistant, like get proper license to get DA jobs. That's one thing. But how can they get, my first question would be, how can they find opportunities to do research, whether they are in US or Canada? What is a way to look for it? The second question is, what are your suggestions, because you made a significant improvement in your TOEFL and that really had a good impact. How can people improve their TOEFL? What are the ways? What were the things or courses you did that improved your TOEFL?
Your first question was about research, like what?
Finding how can, if I'm somebody in Canada
uh,
or US and I want to look for research, what can I do?
you have to get associated with someone who is in the like in a dental school. So if you are assisting with someone, let's supposingly there's a dentist comes who is also a clinical practitioner or a professor in a dental school, probably University of Toronto or in Western or any of the dental schools in Canada or in any dental school in US. That is where you can have an interaction with them, you develop a bond with them. And most often the professors who are working in the academic facility, they are doing some kind of research to improve their CVs and to improve their acumen. So that is where you can be a good part in that service. The other thing is to be doing preceptorships and fellowships. That is where you actually go into the field where you can do the research.
So, and what about TOEFL? Improving your
So
TOEFL? What's this?
TOEFL improvement is, I would say, how I improved is I started taking English classes, and not just English classes. I started interacting more and more with the public. I started speaking in English even with my family and through everyone, and doing the practice exams. And there was a course through Veracity Tutors, I would say.
Mhm.
That's like an online institution, and they take mock exams, one-on-one mock exams of the whole TOEFL scenario, and that is how basically they judged me, and it
So,
got.
do you think Veracity University really helped you? Like that thing help you
I
those
would I would
exams?
I would recommend it. I would
Be-
recommend the Veracity.
Because to be honest, one thing I've learned while working with people is most of the time they would know English, but
Correct.
when they sit down in an exam, and I remember my exam, it was the listening part or something, and I missed one question. And
Correct. And
what
the whole.
happens, you keep thinking about that one and you get the next one wrong too. And I tell people now, screw it. If you got something wrong, forget it. Keep your head in the game and fix the next thing that's coming in front of you.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's a good advice because a lot of people reach out. So, thank you for sharing that.
My
My next,
suggestion is give the exam once, know what your level is. Maybe your English level is already beyond what the 100 marks score, so you don't even have to go for all these options. But for reapplicants is where the thing becomes even harder, because now you have a mental thing that you're going to lose again and again. So yeah.
yep. One thing I've learned, like talking to people who reach out to me and they say, do you think I should apply in March? And I'm like, what's your profile like? Have you done TOEFL? And they said, no, we are going to give it next week. And I'm like, why are you talking to me right now? Like, go and prepare for your TOEFL. And
Mhm.
I've gotten so frustrated that I tell people that they think, you know, how we are coming back home from our school or work and we say on my way back I'm going to go and grab tomatoes. Literally people think that I'm just going to go and grab TOEFL and come and apply. And I've actually met somebody who has given 22 attempts and was not able to score 100. And I keep emphasizing to people, don't take it lightly. It's
Yeah.
a freaking difficult exam. It's more difficult than INBD for most people because we dentists are not trained in analytical exam. It's like an analytical engineering exam where you have to look at the strategy, have to be time efficient. So people who are watching this, please don't think that TOEFL is like buying tomatoes because you can get help in your personal statement, you can get help with other aspect, but you can't buy TOEFL score. So don't even think about anything, just shut down everything, study hard, take help, go for coaching, look for exams, whatever it requires, but focus on it. So my next question is why why did you land it? How did you thought about doing this fellowship program in Perio at University of Pittsburgh? Why not a preceptorship? Why not another master's? Why this fellowship?
It's a good question. So I was doing the dental assisting back in Canada with an endodontist. I was working there for 3 years. This was going to be my fourth year of working, and I applied to dental schools in my first cycle, and I got the interview through University of Pittsburgh. That is where I decided to look into the school offerings through University of Pittsburgh, like what else they offer in their continuing education department, just to enhance my profile. That time, the program director for the periodontics, she was actually putting on the fellowship program, because this was the first time they were trying to do in the whole university. So they put out this program, and one of my friend referred it to me, and I was talking with my mentor, the endodontist who I was working with, and he suggested me, and because he did his residency from US, from UDM in Detroit Mercy, so he suggested me to. It's a good opportunity, Ishan, for you. Go ahead. You, if you continue doing assisting for another year, would make an impact, but would not make that huge of an impact, if other than if you go ahead and do the fellowship program from here. So that is
here's
where.
the question.
Correct.
He did mention, like, rather than doing 1 year of dental assisting, go and do this fellowship. But
Yeah.
how much did it cost you
It
for the
was
fellowship?
$25,000.
Tuition fee and the living
Yeah.
cost is separate.
Living cost is separate. Yes.
Okay, but you were fortunate that you also got opportunity to work with the faculty and in assisting aspect as well while you were in school, right?
Yes. So during the fellowship, I got an opportunity to work as a dental assistant in the faculty practice. And I think that was the biggest thing for the fellowship, because I could work as a dental assistant there also during, like, it was like couple of days to 3 days of work, but now I could know the whole of the faculty in the dental school. So I was
But
almost.
Ishan, this is, sorry to cut you. This is a very important question. Today, somebody called me and they said, I've been working with the faculty of a university, but when it came to invite, they didn't give me any importance or they didn't even recognize. And I was on the phone and I said, I can't teach people how to make good connections, how to create a good rapport, how to be in the good books of the faculty or the doctors. So, how were you able to make good connections that they were able to give you a job later on, an acceptance, and all the faculty knew? What would be the tips you will suggest to people on that?
This came to my head also. So when I had to start doing that job, one of my very good friends, she told me the same thing, that this is a double-edged sword. It could go either way. It could make you or break you. If you do good from here, then it will make you. I would say getting a job is kind of a hard in US on student visa, because one, you would not have a social security number, so you have to convince their HR department and everyone, so that they wait until you have that social security and then start the job. I think it's more, it boils down to your sincerity. Professors, they know that you may not know the best amount of work, but if you are there 24/7. There were so many weekends, I was Saturday, Sunday, I was there in the school, and my program director doing my research.
Like in the lab, in the similar way.
In the periodontics department. So in our fellowship, we had our rooms designated to us to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of other fellows were there. So and it started becoming a habit, and then all the other fellows started coming because it was started being appreciated by the faculty. So that is where you start to gain importance in the faculty's.
So pretty much what you're saying, if you want to be, for people who are listening, there are a couple of things I'll rephrase to you. But he's saying, if you want to create good connections with doctors, with your faculty, with the people that you're working with, you have to work your butt off. You got to be the most hardworking person in the room. And as an immigrant, that's what they are looking for. And on top of that, you have to be a positive person. You can't, I see people, they work like 2 days, 3 days, and after that, they start complaining about something or somebody not treating them well. To be honest, you will get ill-treated. Not everything is going to be fair in life or in these institutions. the biggest thing that people will get inspired from you or will get impressed by you if that you're not being treated fair, but you're still working harder than the rest of the people. And when you do that, that's when real people give you attention. So just to summarize what he said, so overall you said it was about 23,000, and with the living cost and everything must be like another like 40,000, around that ballpark.
Correct. US
So
dollar.
so overall, since you came to Canada, applying to dental school, multiple cycle, getting coaching, whether it was bench exam, whether it was interview, working with me, other stuff, applying for these, how much do you think approximately it has cost you until now? Just to throw the reason I'm not to
Yeah,
enter into your
yeah.
personal affair, but people who are sitting right now, somebody sitting in Amritsar, somebody sitting in Mexico, Middle East, somebody sitting in Nepal, they should know about this, that what's the cost of pursuing this dream
Probably like 80 to 90,000 over, um, or
over these years that you have spent just
like,
to get accepted. And after that, obviously, you're going to
yeah,
pay for your DDS before
correct,
you get the license and start working. So
correct.
the the reason I ask this question is people should be mentally prepared. You don't want to jump into the ocean with $10,000 and think you're going to survive, because
Mm.
you're going to apply to few schools and then it's not going to work out. And if you need better coaching, if you need better opportunities, yes, you have to spend money. So coming back to that fellowship, you mentioned now they don't call it fellowship. Now they change the word to clinical research in perio.
Correct. They're more trying to do like if you want to be someone who is who want to get trained into clinical skills, so they will let you practice as a give you like a faculty license to practice. I think, doctor, you can explain what faculty license means after this, and and you can even do your research, which was part of the fellowship,
So
and get like an F1 visa. So it's
people
kind
who
of
are listening to this is a very, very, very big thing. I was telling Ishan that if a school is letting you work clinically on a human being without a DDS license or without being a resident, in what he was telling me that recently they Pittsburgh have changed its clinical research, changes his fellowship into clinical research, and in during that time now they allow you to work on humans as well, on patients, live patient, which is a big thing, because getting live patient experience in US is very difficult without DDS. And plus you're working in perio, so you're around surgery. I think it's a very big opportunity at this point. If you're looking for, and Pittsburgh isn't paying me for this, but if you're looking for hands-on experience, I think this would be a very good opportunity to improve your profile and do this. The next question I
neither
wanted to
is paying me.
the next question I want to ask you is, so from your second to this cycle, if you have to point out to people, somebody is going to apply, like people who are watching this are going to apply in March. What are the things you would suggest to them looking back? Imagine you're giving advice to your own self 2 years ago. What
um,
things will you suggest them to focus on when it comes to personal statement, when it comes to bench exam, when it comes to interview preps, applying to school, finances? What will you suggest to them?
let's say you are in a case to get more interviews. That's what we are all looking for.
No, imagine they are applying in Caapid right now. Yep, they're gonna be applying to Caapid.
So first, tick off the basics. Do your NBD, get the TOEFL scores, um, have some kind of assisting experience. Tick off all these basics.
Volunteer work. Yep.
Once volunteer work, once these are done, or during this time, I would say your personal statement is a very big aspect of your application. Because see this, your application is just like a page, like a words to the other person who is viewing it. They're not seeing you in person, they don't know you, they haven't seen you before. So all you can communicate through your personal statement is what they're going to realize who you are as a person. And that is what at the end of the day would matter to them if they're going to select you or and they have like a millisecond of chance between one or the other person to put someone in the interview. Then comes your letter of recommendations. I was told, and I think it's a very nice word that's come out, get a letter of recommendation either from someone who is a very high person, they may write anything, or get a letter of recommendation who writes very good about you. If a person has, as you feel, doesn't has a very high designation but is willing to write way beyond for you, get his recommendation letter. If a person you feel is like is working in like military, is a dentist, has been like a very renowned personality, then get, and you're getting his recommendation letter, take that. So those recommendation letters would mean a lot, and that is where you would end up literally having an interview.
Okay, good. And from the aspect, one key thing I'll tell people, Ishan and I got to work in during the interview preparation, and then he had multiple interviews. He was getting interview from one place, another place, another place, another place. He was getting bench exam as well, and then there was silence. And Ishan would message me and would talk to me, and I would say, "Well, you're getting so many invites, but we aren't getting any results." And back end, I would just tell him like, keep working hard, you'll get it. But back end, I was looking at his profile and I was thinking like, this guy is getting so many invites. Maybe he make mistakes in the interview in one place, maybe two, but in 10 places by now he would be really good with his interview. And I saw him in the interview prep, so I got the idea. And so can you tell me how the waiting time, like I know this is more frustrating than anything because you're right at the doorpost but the door is not opening and you're given your best, you know you've done the best, but how was that period like, the from a patient standpoint throughout this journey, what were the key things that help you sustaining your patients while being positive? A lot of people become negative right away when they are not getting what they want. So what's your suggestion on that, Ishan?
It was a very difficult phase. One, because I was a reapplicant. I knew if this year wouldn't work out, I am running short of funds. What will I do next year? And it was coming to the end of November, almost like mid November, November 15th. And I was like, I had so many interviews. I've given all the interviews. I've given all the bench exams. I've done every part where it requires. But this waiting time is literally killing me. And the first thing, I think this was told by my program director. He realized it when he saw me sitting in the fellowship and doing nothing. He's like, Ishan, you need to do something. You need to do some work. Pick up a paper or pick up a research project or go assist some residents or do something. Don't sit idle waiting for a result to happen, because if you do that, nothing will happen. The moment you start doing something in your life, you invite universe to work around you and work for you. And these all results just happen on its own. You have given your part. Now let the God do its work and it will happen for sure. In the next 3 weeks, I got literally 3 acceptances and it changed my whole life after that.
Yeah, I usually tell people this is in Urdu that you don't get things like वक्त से पहले और जरूरत से ज्यादा नहीं मिलता. There is always a divine time for things. Correct. And I personally think we as a human are not ready to have everything. So
yeah.
I believe we have to become something before we deserve things. So there's a process we have to go through. The reason I ask this question is because I get a lot of candidates, especially female, who are very anxious, going through a very rough time. I was doing a poll on my Instagram and WhatsApp, and people who are watching this, they can take a look at my Instagram in the description as well. That how many people cried during this process. There's a large number of people who cry during this process. I mostly did my crying in the dentist school, not before it, but a lot of people cried during the Caapid process. And I thought about this time, like patience is a very important thing. And what you said, your program director said, one of the best way to overcome overthinking and stress is to do something. Like literally go and do something. Physical action will overcome that emotion. That's one of the biggest thing. So before we end this, couple of things I'm gonna ask you. What about the bench exam? What coachings did you took? What about your bench exam part? Because you've given
So,
enough bench exam as well.
so the first few bench exams I gave was in 2023, and that was with University of Pittsburgh. And they told me as a feedback, because I was doing their fellowship, and I was good with them, and they told me, Ishan, you need to improve your bench exam skills, and you need to do the cutting, you need to do the crown preps, you need to do the class twos, maybe get a compressor, maybe do something. And because the more interviews you get, it will turn to a bench exams in the schools that have bench exams. If you don't clear those bench exams, it will not affect anything. You will be at the same level where you were the next year. So I started going to Stevenson. Actually, I did two courses at Stevenson
Oh
to do
wow.
the to improve my bench exam skills. And even during my fellowship time, during the whole year, I was uh, like after school hours, they had the sim clinic, which
Sim
was
lab.
same lab, which was open to students. So I would go there, and I would take the help of the D3 and D4 students. And um, and I got to make some connections from the D3 and D4 students, and they used to help me, and they used to teach me what they learned and what helped them and what did not help them. So this all experiences in total made uh, became very good when I went to bench exams this year. This year I almost gave, like, I think 5 or 6 bench exams, and two of those went into acceptance. So I think so you need to do those skills. And some people really love to use loops, some people do not like to use loops for the bench exams. It is your prerogative. But whatever results you want, if you are doing the 100% in your practice, when you're practicing, your final exam would be good.
Okay, that's good. And what about so in your second, in your first cycle, you had two interviews, and then in the 10, and then I met you for the interview prep. What's
Right.
your advice when it comes to the interview prep part?
I think before the first cycle, I didn't took any interview preps. I just went as is. And after that, when I took your advice and your help, one thing I realized from the interview was I was not vulnerable enough. And I think this was something which probably the universities were also looking into, that, okay, this guy has done this amount of work, this amount of experience, but can we actually trust him? Does he tells us about the failures? And I was not doing that. And this is what you pointed out during the interview prep. And then I went into a self realization to see that actually was happening. And I improved on those skills. And when I the time of the actual interview came, it was just being more natural, because there was no fear of losing at this point, because I had enough experience with you with my previous cycle. And it went like more of like a conversation. In fact, the UCSF interview, which was scheduled for 30 minutes, it went on for 1 hour.
Oh wow.
And I was with the program director of the program, and he really loved it. And he was telling about himself, his family, and all the students, and how the class functions there. And he really loved, I believe, and it led to an acceptance over there also. So be yourself. Try to talk towards the to someone. Try to be more vulnerable, more open. uh, don't shy of things, don't hide things, don't make stories, I would say. Present yourself what you are. And if someone over the other side of the camera is going to like you, they will like you anyways. So yes.
So
There's one more thing I would want to touch about during this cycle of interviews. This would come up way more in the next cycle, is your Kira talent things. Now this is where it's a is for some schools, I think for NYU and some other schools, for Columbia, Indiana, is part of the interview, in which you have to record yourself giving answers to some questions.
Computerized exam. Yep.
Yes, and most of us, including myself, were not comfortable with without talking to anyone. We're just recording ourselves. It's like almost like someone who's like doing a YouTube video. So it's just a time process. You have to get comfortable over doing that. Pick a camera, record yourself, see what you say and how you perform, and then keep on improving.
Yep, and definitely I've made some videos on Kira talent assessment because it's comparatively different, because right now we are talking to each other. But
Right.
then Kira talent assessment or MMIs, whatever you want to call, including Casper, is just like a question will pop up in front of you and then give you 3 seconds to think, and then you have to reply to a camera, which sounds very weird to us because most dentists have never done it. But
Right.
hopefully I'll try to put some videos in the description if somebody wants to see that as well. So it's pretty good. Like you mentioned about the interview part, that vulnerability, I definitely remember, and it's different for everybody. With men mostly, especially who have done things, we are coming from a point of our uh what do you call, like our achievements. We are coming from an area of achievements, trying to show this is the hard work we put in and this is the result that we got. And then I personally sometimes see once in a while, okay, now you have to switch to your human side and so show that, okay, beside this, I like to play football, I have a dog, I have a puppy, I like to fall down and laugh on it, and that's the other side of you. And I think that shows that you're a balanced side. But sometimes I get people who are other on the other side of the spectrum, where they show too much of the human side and less of the professional side. So to those people I say, okay, good that you're a very lovely person, you like to speak a lot and you're an extrovert, but let's make it a little bit more professional so they would like your professional aspect too. So glad you brought that point, and I'm really happy all of this worked out. One of the things I will point out to people, if when I look at Ishan's achievement right now, a couple of things that's really helped him. Obviously, he financially invested a lot. He worked with me in the coaching. Then he was going to Stevenson twice, living there, paying for the fellowship, doing an undergrad in Canada. Like a lot of this was a lot of commitment. Uh, Most immigrants would come in and buy a Camaro for that price, but you invested all of that in your education, which is a good thing. And the second thing, if you read between the lines, is that the places he was working at, he wasn't just working hard, he was making contacts. That's a very important ability, a skill that I personally suggest people you should acquire, because being an immigrant coming from India, Pakistan, China, or whatever country you're coming from, having a different name, nobody really cares about you or your story. It's only when you create an emotional bond with them that they get invested in you. So these are some of the things I've seen in his story that has helped him. So I hope people who are watching this video helps you. Any last word, Ishan, before we stop the recording? Because one thing I tell people, that if you're interested in preparing for your next cycle, if you need help with your personal statement or the Caapid process, they can reach out to me. Everything's going to be in the description. But any last words you want to tell people that might help them before we end this?
I would say trust yourself. Look out for things. Um, don't just sit idle. Don't just think that you are trapped in a box of you are just doing that. For instance, when I was doing the fellowship, there's something called as Mission of Mercy. It's like a volunteership, and that's like happens once a year, and none of us know could we part of it or we couldn't part of it. I just registered for it and I be part for it. And most of my interviews, they ask these questions about, oh, why did you went to Mission of Mercy? So trust yourself, trust your instinct, trust your gut feel, take those decisions. Maybe You need just one decision to turn right in your favor, and you will get to where you are. And good luck for your next cycle.
Good, good. Thank you for sharing this. Yes, totally agree. Keep doing something. Even if it's not productive, like if you feel it's not productive, at some point it might be. So that's some golden words. And I hope this video helps you. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me. My contacts is going to be in the description. And hopefully, we'll see you guys in a more meaningful video. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor.